Hello, welcome to the gym. First exercise that I'm going to get you doing is a 45-degree deficit kettlebell good morning. One foot's on a Bosu ball, the other one is riding a horse off and away into the distance. Get ready, let's go. Hello, this is Liam from Lazarus Personal Training, the founder of the No Shoe Crew, and this video is about to explain to you 4 major movement patterns that we will use to explain every exercise. So at the beginning of this video, I just listed a bunch of random different things that make up an exercise. Maybe not the riding off on the horse, but you get the gist out of it. Sometimes it can feel like the gym is just that. It's a bunch of words that don't really make sense. But what I'm looking to do today is take you through 4 major movement patterns that explain pretty much every exercise that we're going to go into. A movement pattern is basically when our body moves from point A to point B. And whether that be on a machine, with dumbbells, with kettlebells, with a barbell, just body weight, we will move through these exact same motions time and time again. So we need to learn these motions to then implement them into exercise. Those 4 patterns are a push, a pull, a squat, and a hinge. I'm going to explain those a little bit, talk through some of the mistakes that I might see with them, and then as a cheeky little bonus at the end, I'm going to give you my top exercise for each one of those 4 movement patterns. To begin with, let's look at the press. Now the press is probably the most common place that people start in the gym because we grab hold of some dumbbells and we go and we press. They're often used a lot in circuit training, just classes in general. Reason being, the anterior of the body is usually far easier to move than the posterior, or basically our front, we can see it and it's easier to move than our back is because we can't see his back and it's hard to know what's actually going on with it. But a common mistake I see when people press is one, we are overusing the press and then we get internally rotated. Now modern life, we are already internally rotated anyway, and then we are putting more weight through this internally rotated position. It makes it even harder to take our hands overhead, and just in general it's not a comfortable position to be in for the shoulder joint or for the rotator cuff. What I would advise doing is rolling the shoulder blades back and down, opening out the chest and basically putting yourself into a bit of external rotation. It means that the shoulder joint sits in a better position and we can move through a smoother range of motion when we go into that press position. Sure. So why do we need to press? Well, if we ever need to get up off of the floor, what is going on? So why do we need to press? Well, if we ever need to get off the floor and we put a hand down, that's usually when we're going to need that strength to stand up. Just generally, a better arm strength, better wrist strength, better elbow strength, better shoulder strength means that overall the body works better. And if we are limited in our range of motion in our shoulder, it then means that the rest of the body might start breaking down around it. So if we can press better, usually means the rest of the body is going to stay in a healthier position. And my top press motion exercise is an upside down kettlebell press. Not super exciting, I know I've just said a load of words here, but basically if you take a kettlebell and put it upside down and hold it in your hand and then press overhead and bring it back down again, that's going to do a load for your shoulder stability. Overall, we need more stability in that shoulder because it's quite an unstable joint. We also need to make sure that we're moving through that range of motion correctly. So if an upside down kettlebell press isn't great for you in a vertical position, we might be able to take it into a horizontal position and work through that. But basically, that unstable weight at the top forces the shoulder to work harder. It means we can go a little bit lighter with it, which is probably where we want to start. The next movement pattern on this list is the squat. A lot of people call the squat the king of exercises, and for good reason. It's a very useful pattern to have, but often is executed poorly. Similar to that press, it's anterior, it's as front. We do this squat pattern a lot because basically it's sitting down and standing up. We can see the front of his legs, we can see how that's moving, and therefore we tend to gravitate more towards it. However, we might not be executing that correctly if we lack mobility and stability in certain areas. For example, if we aren't using his feet, this is why I use no shoes a lot. Actually, it's why I don't use shoes a lot. Good English. It's why I don't use shoes a lot, because I'm able to grip into the ground and create some stability from my feet. I want my hips to be mobile and moving around so I can get a better movement out of them rather than be stiff and locked down. A common question that I often get asked around the squat is how deep should we go? And really that varies person to person. There's a tribe of people that will say ass to grass, get as deep as you can get into it, and then there's another tribe of people that say don't go past 90 degrees. Really, I want you to think about your circumstance. Do you need to sit down and stand up on a day-to-day basis? Are you going down into low positions? Do we need a full range of motion when it comes to that squat pattern? If we're saying yes to a lot of these things, that we do need a full range of motion, well, yeah, we need to work out what our range of motion is and then squat to that level. However, if we only need to sit down and stand up from our office desk, well, we might be best off just training in that range of motion. But I would always say to go beyond the range of motion is probably better than to use a partial range of motion. So basically, always try and do more than do less. And my top exercise for this movement pattern is a box squat. Now, the box squat can be as high or as low as you need it to be. We can load it up with kettlebells or barbells or dumbbells or anything, really. The box squat is a really useful tool to have, but a little tip for it is that we don't want to sit completely down onto the box, whatever that box might be. We want to be hovering basically. So let's say I weigh 80 kilograms, I want 40 kilograms to touch that box before standing back up again. Don't put your full weight down into it because then it compresses the spine a little bit. We always want to keep tension in that movement. Another common thing that I hear when people start in the gym is that they want to be able to do a pull-up, and that leads me into my next movement pattern, which is a pull. Now, I don't know about you, but doing a pull-up is hard. It's one of the hardest things that we can do in the gym, and a lot of people just go, grab the bar and see if they can pull themselves up. And we often lack the pull power that we need to get ourselves up to that bar. So we need to work on regressions of what a pull is. If we think a push is taking our hands from our shoulders and away, a pull is bringing our hands in towards the body. Now that could be in a vertical position, like a pull-up, or it could be in a horizontal position, like a row. The reason why we need to pull, and probably the reason why more people need to pull more than they push, is because, again, in this modern world, we are rolled forward. If we're on our phones, at a desk, on a computer, in the car, everything is this really rounded forward position. And a better pull power means that we are working our upper back a little bit more. That's becoming tighter and stronger, and it's setting our shoulders into a good position. It's mobilizing that spine a little bit better because it has the strength to stay up and tall, and just generally puts us in a better, more upright position. Now again, that could come from vertical pulling or it could come from horizontal pulling. As a rule, I would tend to go 2-to-1 on a pull to a push, and then from there I would probably again look 2-to-1 for a horizontal row to a vertical row. Basically do a lot more pulling. And my top pull movement is a seated cable row. Now the reason why I like a seated cable row is because we can vary the hand position out of it. We can come close, we can come wide. It means that we're sat in a stable position. We can work on being upright and tall. Most importantly, it works on that horizontal pull position, making sure that we're squeezing our shoulder blades back and down and getting the upper back nice and firm for being in an upright position all day long. And then finally, the one that most people struggle with is the hip hinge position, which basically means bending over. Now, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. You see, back when we were trying to work out how to stop people having lower back pain, there was this initiative that was put in place, and again, you'll have probably seen it, in terms of saying, whenever you're picking up heavy boxes, lift from the knees. That was basically saying, use more legs than you do your back. And I agree. I don't want anybody bending over from their spine. However, there was an important part of that was missed out, and that's the hips. The hips are the powerhouse of the body. That's where we generate most of our power from, and that's where we want to be moving from the most. However, when we only bend from the knees, we get to a point where the body goes, I don't have anywhere else to go. So we come up onto the toes, the back rounds anyway. And then we end up picking up this box with our heels off of the ground, pushing through his toes and in a really unstable position. To have the hips working correctly means that the lower back's supported. It means that the hip girdle is in a good position. It means that our upper back is properly supported and that our knees are well supported and they are strong and they are stable. The knees are a slave to the hip and the ankles. So the better hip mobility we have, the less knee pain that we're going to get. Just for general body health, a hip hinge is a fantastic movement to learn and to have. If we know how to move our hips correctly, it pretty much means that we know how to move everything correctly. We can really work on keeping that body in a good position and just generally get the most out of being in the gym. My number one exercise for when it comes to a hip hinge is something that I forgot. Is a kettlebell deadlift. Now, I think a lot of people would go, well, why is it not a barbell deadlift? I think that's because while the barbell deadlift is good at overloading the body and going super maximal with his weight in a beginning point, the kettlebell deadlift is far more true to life. It's going to be under us, we can get our hands on it, we stand up tall, it's a little bit more like a bag. It's something that we would carry day to day. It means our shoulders can sit into a good position, we can go 2 hands on or 1 hand on, and just basically it's a really versatile tool to use that again still works on that hip hinge position. So to conclude, if we nail all those movement patterns, suddenly every exercise in the gym becomes a little bit easier. If we can do those 4 movement patterns, every barbell movement becomes a lot easier. If we can do those 4 movement patterns, every machine suddenly becomes a lot more clear as to how we need to use it. And rather than thinking there's a difference between a shoulder press and a chest press, we go, actually, it's just the push. And this is how I set up into it. We then also know the real world uses for these movements that we're doing. So it's not just that we're using the gym to push and pull, we're using the gym to set our body into a good position for the rest of our life. And that really, when it comes to it, is the most important part about using the gym and about exercise. You can progress and regress these movement patterns how you see fit. You can do those movement patterns and get a solid workout from just moving around in those positions. You can also progress them up to a point where we are loading them up to our 1 rep max of that movement pattern. For you at this moment in time, a 1 rep max might just be sitting down and standing up correctly, but up to a certain point we might be loading that up with a barbell or with some heavy kettlebells or with some heavy dumbbells. Hopefully you found this video interesting and informative. If you'd like to know anything more about it, please drop a comment down below. I'm happy to answer it. And if you click the link just over to the side, it'll take you to a dumbbell workout that pretty much covers all 4 of those movement patterns. I will see you next time.